don't know you anymore. Anakin, you're breaking my heart. You're going down a path I can't follow.
Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. I've got a special guest here. First time appearance on the channel. We've got jkid for the Ministry of Otaku. If you have not visited jkid's YouTube channel, he's a growing channel. I think he just hit 1,000 subscribers. Congratulations on the milestone. And you specifically specialize in kind of anime con, Comic-Con, anime kind of content, right, jkid?
Yes, yes, that is true. And also, I've always been into news about the anime convention industry, news about anime, manga, and video games. Already covered briefly on the Metroid piracy incident regarding Kotaku, and I speculate, is it journalism or sabotage? Because game journalists these days hate their own hobby. They use game journalism as a stepping stone to get to the corporate media, which is the New York Times and the Washington Post.
Yeah, it's crazy. I feel it's almost like the same thing with comics journalism. They do comics journalism to like as a stepping stone to mainstream comics themselves. It's crazy how that's become an avenue, and it just really has destroyed the ability to get quality comic book news, and in your case, anime news and stuff like that, or video game news. It's absolutely insane.
Yes, now, and they get angry when YouTubers do a better job than covering the news than the comic journalists and game journalists, because they want to get paid to do nothing, and they want to get paid just to write political pieces instead of actual journalism. They're more like political propagandists.
It's
political activists.
I call it access media. Like, we're not going to pay you anything, but we'll let you have access as long as you do not criticize, negatively criticize any of the work that you're covering. You can't be honest. You know what I mean? It's just crazy.
Yes. No one said the same thing. The access media, but I didn't know that exact meaning of access media until I learned it from you. And here's the thing: they probably get paid in cat food salary, basically barely nothing, and they live in major cities.
Paid mostly in like free comic books. Like here's next week's selection of comics that you can review a week early. You don't have to pay for. I think that's mostly what they get. At least in comic books, it's crazy. Now we've been seeing a lot of changes, obviously, within the the culture around comic books, anime, and everything. Anime feels like it's been a little bit more immune to some of the things that have been happening. As far as we've been talking about, here on the channel with DC Comics really pushing a hard agenda, kind of following in line with Marvel Comics. Obviously, you have been around the convention circuit for 14 years now. You've been you've been going to a lot of conventions. You've been studying the culture, and you're seeing that there's a lot of change as far as the culture around the convention circuit as well. It's not just within the fandom with the comics themselves. It's like the entire community that's being taken over.
Yes, the entire community wasn't like this. I was covering anime conventions as a hobby, and I started the Ministry of Otaku channel in 2019 before the way before the great lockdown started. It was a very different community. It was a fun community. It was one based on atmosphere, spectacle, being with cosplayers, video gamers, anime fans. It was a wonderful experience. They've rarely changed, and they changed from in-person conventions to virtual conventions. Many conventions have imposed mask mandates, and some of them, and growing up anime conventions and video game conventions, have imposed vaccine mandates, which is...
Well, I know that has a lot to do with like local laws, right? Especially if you're like in the Northeast, a lot of the states there have different mandates than maybe you would see in a Florida or a Texas and other parts of the United States.
That is definitely in California, but in New York and in most states, basically there's no real mask mandates outside of major cities. Now in New York City, they got rid of mask mandates, but everyone's still wearing masks inside of stores, and there's a vaccine mandate, a very discriminatory vaccine mandate, because of the historical hesitancy of the Black and Hispanic community.
It's crazy. I've seen a lot of the signs that were even coming up a couple of years ago before all these things happened. And there would be signs out there like you're not allowed to touch the cosplayers, as if people didn't know that already. Is like,
yes, that is common sense. You keep your hands to yourself, well, unless you ask. These now the cosplay without consent. That's actually recent. When I first attended my few anime conventions in the early years, starting from 2007, there was a lot of grumping. There was yaoi paddles that you can buy and some of them were actually playing with them as a joking matter until one incident at an anime convention, one person used a yaoi paddle so hard that it actually injured the person who was hit, and that's when almost every anime convention outlawed the yaoi panels in their conventions.
So there's always one person that takes it way too far.
Yes, Red Board actually covered this.
So have you seen anything else, besides just obviously the mandates and everything that's going on? Have you seen like a distinct change in the culture over the last 14 years? Have things progressively, gone a certain way? We know there's been, obviously there's wardings and things and that. Yeah.
Yes, what I saw is that there are increasing amount of panels that are focused on inclusion and diversity, but I never pay attention to that because my focus is on capturing the atmosphere, cosplay, having enjoying the convention. I rarely go to panels unless it's something that is interesting me, and I usually record the panel for
posterity's sake.
Yes, posterity's sake.
It's crazy when you see these panels. Obviously, a lot of times they'll upload these kind of diversity panels, or if they have like the history of female authors or whatnot. And when they kind of like narrow down the interest of the people that could even be interested in the panel, and a lot of times you look at the crowd, there's nobody there. And it's almost like the conventions themselves are willing to host this panel that they know there's very limited interest in, just so they could say they did it, rather than really be of service to the convention goers and providing something that more people would actually want to go see and enjoy.
Yes, if they really care about diversity and inclusion, they will actually invite guests and cosplayers. That you have at least one Black American cosplayer or one person that is part of the anime convention scene as a guest of honor, along with regular guests, and have create their own panel that is directly related to the anime culture of their topic interest. Like in furry conventions, they got guest of honor.
You see, the comic conventions and anime conventions should be looking over to BrodyCon. They got it right.
No, furries.
Oh, okay.
Furry cons.
That's different.
Yeah, here's the thing about furry cons. They're related to the furry con scene, but they have their own unique culture because based on the My Little Pony Friendship and Magic series.
So, how, as someone who's been going through that, what else have you seen just as far as the culture? Are people no longer there kind of for the spectacle? Used to be everyone kind of commiserating, having fun. I don't know.
Yes.
From what I've seen in comic books, it's always felt pretty inclusive. It certainly sways heavily male. Comic. Regular
comic books. When you write a good story with good characters, for good atmosphere, good plot, with coloring, people will buy comic books, even if a story is focused on the political side. As long as you got a good story, as long as it's wrapped in a good package, they will buy it. I mean, there have been political comic books before, but the politics is either on the background, or it's written very well that you won't even notice it. You're just there for the spectacle. I have no objection with comic books going political as long as it's not obvious, as long as you present it in a package. But the current comic books that we're seeing right now is pushing a literal partisan political agenda. And I say this as a left-winger. Actually, libertarian socialist. I take my freedoms at premium above all else. economic socialist. Socially, I'm a libertarian. And the comic books that I'm seeing reflect more of a authoritarian leftist agenda. Authoritarian leftism that focuses on identity politics than actual real issues, and focusing on ongoing current day events instead of historical events or universal themes and issues that everyone can agree on.
Yeah, it's crazy, and it feels like anime and manga specifically are kind of deemed as kind of a threat, because we know there are a lot of comic readers that have decided they've had enough is enough, and they've kind of walked away and walked over to manga. You know, it's comic books, it's black and white, it's presented a little bit differently, but there's less of the incursion of these really heavy-handed political themes and stories within manga as opposed to comic books.
Yes,
and they found this alternative there, and it feels like people want to kind of shut down manga and anime as a viable alternative, or at least downplay it.
Yes, that is true, because Japanese media industry and the American media industry is very different from each other. The Japanese media industry focuses on entertainment above all else. This is why you have anime and manga that it sometimes goes all in on escapism on entertainment. With the isekai boom, even though mostly isekai is genetic medieval material, but there's much of variety in the isekai in the isekai genre alone than in Western comic books. The comic book industry and in the Western industry, they are all in on political partisanship in one direction. Japanese comic books, they're focusing on entertainment, and that's why so many comic book fans are migrating to anime and manga itself. Now, so there's some anime and manga that are political. Obviously, one of them is Gate, the Gate anime involving when Japan was invaded by a medieval world, and the Japanese military actually had to invade the other world, and they actually it's a long story, but eventually it's a very interesting manga / anime. You should go see it for yourself. Now, even though it is somewhat partisanship, it still focuses on entertainment. It focuses on actual universal themes of war. With American comic books, the current crop of American comic books, it's just all partisanship. It's just bluntly right in your face. And the Western comic book industry sees anime and manga as an existential threat. And what the American comic book industry could have done in response was go all in on escapism to compete. 2020 and 2021 was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to turn back the boat and go all in on escapism. Where American comic books could just focus on pure escapism. Go out there and with wild stories like when X-Men during the 1970s, 1980s, 1990s, that they went all in. We went bonkers with all sorts of story genres within the superhero comic book series.
Absolutely. You know what's crazy? Obviously, I think most people here know that I'm kind of a conservative-leaning Christian. If I go into U.S. comics, and supposedly, there's a heavy amount of Christians within the United States, you would think you might want to, create some themes and whatever that placate maybe to that audience that at least resonate with them. But if you go over to manga, you'll find far more current manga that have, like, at least borrow things and themes like from even the Bible, even though you don't have a lot of Christians in Japan.
Yes.
But they will incorporate it in their manga, even just because they respect the story and they understand that the themes there are kind of universal.
Yes, that is true. It's known that in the Evangelion, the creator of the Evangelion series, I know that's the author's name of the anime series. He actually adopted the Christian symbols and the Christian names of the angels and the concept of angels because the concept looked cool. The concept actually looked cool to him.
Yeah, same thing with like a Battle Angel Elite. It's certainly, you don't go in there and you're like, oh, this is a Christian themed fable, but there's certainly some heavy usage from the Bible that's incorporated in the story, and it really works well there, and it's almost seamless. If you're unaware of it, you don't even see it, but if you're aware of it, it's quite apparent to you. You don't see anything that seamless or subtle or that well constructed really in American comics today. It's really disappointing.
Yes, the best political and religious entertainment are ones that you don't notice is political or religious unless you really pay attention or actually research the background in the making of the part. Anime and manga, they do it very well. And previous American media entertainment groups, such as in cartoons, comic books, they had a good storyline. There are some obvious themes, but it's the overall part is entertainment, especially in movies. Nowadays, now in this woke agenda, fake wokeness, well, everything has to be obvious to them. Literal propaganda, like in mainland China.
Yeah.
Like in mainland China.
It's like hitting you right in the face with a sledgehammer. Like, do you get it? Yeah, I got it. Like, how could I miss it? You just hit me in the face with it. That's one of my biggest concerns with American comics. You don't even have to think anymore when you're consuming them, because everything is so presented in such a manner that there's nothing to contemplate. This is what people want to think, and you just don't get that with American comics anymore. That's why I think manga and anime is turning into such a viable opportunity for people to just jump over there and not have to worry about all the crap and sort through all the garbage that's being produced right now.
Yes, so viable that right now they're having catastrophic and apocalyptic shortages of paper to print the manga. And there's so much demand. Meanwhile, DC Comics have printer shortages. They claim they got their printing issues with printer shortages, but in reality, their comics don't sell. And DC and Marvel are at a current death spiral right now. And I think they're doing it on purpose.
Has to be number ones and ratio variant covers and all that stuff. Now, the indie scene in comic books is much more vibrant. It's certainly increased the numbers of indie comics that are doing well, since the pandemic shutdown are doing a lot better. But yeah, DC and Marvel are just missing the boat. Yeah, it's crazy the way things have gone. So I do want to say thank you very much to jkid for the Ministry of Otaku for joining me today, kind of talking a little bit about his channel, his seed, the things that he's noticed that have changed kind of over the last 14 years since you really jumped into the anime convention scene. Do you have any final words, jkid?
Yes. Seriously, live your life. Go back to normal. Live whatever life that is left. Time is a flat circle. Enjoy whatever life you can. And seriously, if you can afford the money, go to a rare state and have a vacation there. Visit a convention that is operating back to normal. Give people and places that deserve your money. Go to those places and give them your money. Don't give money to people in places that hate you, especially anime conventions and Comic Cons.
Well, thank you very much. I do appreciate it, and I appreciate your perspective.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. I would appreciate it very much. It helps us attract more views for the channel. Subscribe for future commentary, comic book news, and reviews. And don't forget to ring the bell for notifications. If you want to talk comics, movies, and much, much more, you can follow me on Twitter at Wes_from_TC. With that, Salamat Po, and I'm out.